Hi everyone, it's Karen and welcome to what is November's edition of Once Upon a Book Club. It was postponed from last week due to various things, but we're on tonight. I don't know how many people will join us. I see there's no one in the chat at the moment. So I am joined by Deb again. So Deb, it's probably going to be you and me chatting about this book. I'll just give everyone an overview of what the book is. It is the Lost Bookshop. I've got a glare off my Kindle there. And it's by an author called Evie Woods. And it's basically set around three characters, Opaline. When I was reading it, it was Opaline in my head. Martha and Henry. And it's set over two different timelines. So I think it was the 19. Am I right in thinking it was the 1920s?
It's the 19. I think she started. I think Opaline or Opaline. It started with her point of view. It said London 1921 to begin with.
Yeah, and then Martha and Henry are present day, and it's basically about this magical bookshop that disappears and reappears for some people. So my views on this, I did actually write my little book journal entry on this just this afternoon. So there is my journal entry. I did do this over 2 pages actually, just to jog me memory, because it was about 2 weeks ago I finished it and I thought I'm never going to be able to remember it. Overall, I did enjoy the book.
I did as well.
Yeah, I preferred Opaline's character to Martha and Henry's, and I would have preferred to have more of Opaline's story. What did you think, Deb? Did you enjoy the book?
I enjoyed the book, and I agree. It did start with Opaline in London in 1921, which was obviously post World War One. Is that right? Because the World War One, sort of between the two world wars, isn't it? So between World War One and World War Two, and then Henry and Martha, it just says 9 months ago, so that timeline is not really specified. But it's obviously post Downton Abbey, because Martha mentions on TV, so it's post Downton Abbey and post the book Normal People by Sally Rooney. So it's I think it probably is nowadays.
Yeah, more present.
Nowadays is. I enjoyed it, and when I first started, I thought, oh, absolutely up my alley, because it's about a magic and books, which is definitely up our alley, isn't it? So that's. I really thought I was going to really enjoy it. From the start, I knew that I would like it, because it's about those things.
Yeah. I actually read this on my Kindle, and I'm so disappointed that I read it on my Kindle, because I think this book that was about books and the magic of books, and I wish I'd read it as a book. I'm fuming with myself for reading it on my Kindle. I actually have to buy the book just so I can have it.
Yeah, I think I might do that too, because I read it on my Kindle as well.
Did you? Yeah,
I normally do, but what I liked about it is because I wrote down in my journal, I wrote down all the books, which was quite nice, because I could just flick through my Kindle and like kind of pinpoint all the books that they mentioned in the Lost Bookshop. And particularly, I think that particularly the Bronte books, because I think that they were highlighted, weren't they? Like, I think that one of Opaline goes to Haworth, where the Bronte sisters been there. I've been to where the Bronte sisters lived at the parsonage in Haworth, and I really liked that she goes there, and I've been there, and I could picture where she was, and I think that was quite exciting.
Yeah. So anybody who's watching this who hasn't read the book, there will be some spoilers throughout this review of it. Opaline's character, like we said, kind of 1920s, 1930s, and she's got a rather overbearing brother who wants to marry her off for the good of the family, and she doesn't want that, so she kind of escapes to Paris and meets this kind of unsavory character who she has a bit of an affair with, and then she ends up coming back to is it Dublin and Ireland where the book
she goes from Paris, and then because her brother tracks her down, what happens is, sorry, this is a spoiler. What happens is she's in Paris and she gets a job at the English bookshop in Paris, which is Shakespeare and Company, Shakespeare and Co. What's it called? Shakespeare and Co. And she has a job there. And whilst she's there, she comes into contact with some authors, some famous writers of the time, which is Ernest Hemingway. I think she's Ernest Hemingway and James Joyce.
Yeah.
So while she's there, she has a photo taken because I think in Shakespeare and Co, there's somebody from a magazine comes there and she takes a photo. She's up the ladder in Shakespeare and Co putting some books away.
Yeah.
And the photo is taken of Ernest Hemingway, who's below her when she's on the ladder. And she thinks, it's okay. Her brother doesn't read magazines, so he's not going to be able to track her down.
Yeah.
But her friend sees her picture in the magazine and tells her husband, and her husband is friends with her brother, and her brother tracks her down to where she works. And so he comes and he basically kidnaps her and he takes her to this hotel. But I think is the guy called Armand or something?
Armand or something,
Armand, So he then comes and rescues her from the hotel where her brother and the guy who he wants her to marry has taken her. And the owner of Shakespeare and Co says, James Joyce, there's a couple of people involved, and James Joyce says, go to Dublin because I know somewhere in Dublin where you can go. So she does. She escapes Paris then, and she goes to Dublin, and she goes to meet this guy, which, I haven't written it down. What's his name? She goes to meet...
Is it Matthew?
Yeah, but she's supposed to meet his father.
Yeah, who owns the shop.
He's sadly passed away, and so she meets Matthew, and she goes to work in the shop that his father has started. And it's a bit of a knick-knack shop. It's not a bookshop at that point. It's a bit of a knick-knack shop. But she creates a bookshop within this shop. And I like the sound of it because what she does is like all his little knickknacks. She kind of makes little tableau with her books and his knickknacks.
I actually wrote that down. I really liked that bit. I thought that was a lovely touch. Yeah,
me too. I really like that because I could just imagine being in there, isn't it? Because she like puts little hot air balloons with certain books and other whatever he's got in there. She creates to sell her books.
Yeah,
and I really liked it. I thought, I bet that's a fantastic place to go to.
And then she finds out that she's pregnant from this Armand guy, and kind of long story short, the brother catches up with her again. Mind this brother's a nasty piece of work, and that's at the end. And she ends up in an asylum. It boiled my blood when I was reading this because the way women were treated, they were just kind of pieces of like furniture that they could do.
Terrible, because also that kind of reminded me a bit, harking back to last month's book, The Nightingale, was how awful, how brave some women were. Because in The Nightingale, obviously there were a couple of really brave women, and in this book too, some of the women were really brave because obviously she was put in this asylum by her brother, and the doctors in that asylum knew that she didn't need to be there, but he was paying to be kept for her to be kept there, and they just went along with it because they were being paid by her brother to keep her there. And that reminded me of like how awful and how brave women were to put up with that. But also Martha, in her storyline, she was abused by her husband, who he'd beaten her, and that's why she'd ran away from another small town in Ireland, and she'd gone to Dublin and then come into contact with somebody, the woman who was there in the house where she looked after her. But was she real, that lady? Was she an angel? Was she a ghost? What was that lady?
Just to kind of explain it a little bit, from when Opaline was around in the 20s and 30s to then when Martha and Henry were around, the bookshop disappears, and there's only the two houses that were on each side of the bookshop, and there's no bookshop. So Martha, in the present, she flees a violent husband and goes and gets a job in this house, which was where the bookshop should have been. And there was this woman who was employing her called Madame Borden. And I don't know if she was real or not, because she kind of disappears at the end.
And also in between, because Martha says, or she'd introduced Madame Borden to her mother, I think it was, and then her mother said, "Oh no, I didn't meet her." So was she real or was she not? And also when Madame Borden throws a dinner party for some of her friends, and she doesn't turn up to it.
I kind of guessed maybe 3/4 of the way through the book, is this woman really there? And initially I thought she was maybe the ghost of Opaline.
I thought that maybe she was the ghost of Opaline, but that's never really clarified, is it?
Well, it's not really clarified at all, is it? Who she was, or what happened to her, or how this bookshop mysteriously appears again.
And also Henry said that he'd been in the bookshop, but that was also a bit unclear because he'd had a few drinks, isn't it? And he said that he kind of went into the bookshop and then the bookshop disappeared. But the whole thing about Henry was he was doing a PhD on a missing manuscript, which was the story, and the story within the story was that Opaline was a bookseller, but also there were a few dodgy characters because there was Armand, there was another guy and she couldn't tell anybody, she couldn't trust anybody with this manuscript that she'd found, which was supposedly the lost manuscript of Charlotte Bronte, one of the Bronte sisters, Emily Bronte. So she thought that she'd found this manuscript, that she couldn't trust anybody. And then Henry had heard about this, and he was looking to find whether there was the manuscript was real or not. And
the other strange thing was the words from this lost manuscript were shown up as a tattoo on Martha's back. That kind of was never explained either.
You just had to suspend disbelief and believe that is what happened.
I think trying to explain this book now that we're doing it, it sounds quite complicated.
It does. It sounds bonkers, actually.
I'm just going to go to the comments a bit. Hi Anne, hi Edith, Diane, Carol, thanks for joining us. Edith says, in history, women had no influence. Very true, Edith. I think that's somewhat true today as well, but we'll not get into that. Carol, I guessed way before they told us that Opaline was Martha's grandmother. Really? She did, didn't she? She actually was, because Opaline, when she was in the asylum, she had the baby, but the doctors told her that the baby was born dead. But turned out they'd probably sold the baby to a wealthy couple, and the baby was alive and turned out to be Martha's grandmother, which is all a bit far-fetched, really, when you think about it.
A bit far-fetched, but I wonder if that was the secret of the Lost Bookshop, that it turned up to help people when they needed it, people in that family line when they needed it.
Yeah. But when Martha was, when she went to work in that house, and it wasn't a bookshop, and she was, our bedroom was in the basement, and the walls started to crack bit by bit, and tree branches were showing up with bookshelves on and a book on, and it was like, I'd actually quite like to
she potentially needed to read would just turn up, and she thought it was Madame Bowden, like leaving her a book there.
Yeah. But, and books that kind of related to the experiences she was going through. Has anybody else in the chat got any thoughts on who Madame Bowden, who she was, or what all that was about? Because there was a bit where Madame Bowden had a few lady friends come for dinner, but then she wasn't at the dinner. And then it was miraculously all cleared up in the morning, and there was no mess.
Yeah. Libelle, it says walls crack and tree branches sounds like a time issue to me, and I did think that when I was reading it, I thought it was maybe like a time slip novel, because I wondered whether Henry was on the same timeline as Martha, like, because it didn't specify what timeline they were on, or Madame Bowden, and I did think that was time seemed a bit weird.
There was a thing, there was a quote in there that I read, and it was, in order for something to exist, you must first believe in it. And I was thinking about that, and I thought, is that bookshop, was that always there, but because people didn't believe it was there, they didn't see it? So as Martha and Henry started to believe it was real, more and more of it kind of appeared to them.
Yeah.
So I think that was what that was about. But I guess it's up to interpretation, isn't it? Edith said, I thought she was a ghost that only Martha and Henry could see. Yeah, but I didn't think that immediately. I think we were quite a way through the book when I suddenly thought to myself, I don't think this woman's real.
Although, did she speak to the police when Martha's husband had an accident? What was that, an accident? Did someone push him? Did the house make him fall?
Yeah,
because it was a magic house, and like obviously Martha needed to be rid of the husband because he was violent and he was making her go back to him.
Yeah,
and then he had an unfortunate accident.
There was also a bit when you go back to Opaline's time, when she managed to escape the asylum after, I think it was 18 years she had been there. I mean, you've just got a mental case by that time. But she managed to escape and get back to the bookshop. And she met this guy in the shop. Was he called Joseph? He was a German soldier or an Austrian soldier.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know if he was real either. I didn't know if he was a ghost that she was just seeing. I don't know if
he was disappeared, but then he came back, and
yeah,
I wonder if it was he a ghost, or was it just people in different times?
Yeah,
because that must have been around the Second World War when he was in Ireland.
Yeah, because by the time
not with the one with the strange moustache. No, I don't think he was. He was in the Air Force.
The one with the strange moustache. Did he have a strange moustache?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Libel says, oh, yeah, no, we are entering a strange part of physics. In reality, we don't see anything. Nothing is there. It's our brains that interpret everything we see. We learn. This is a tree, and then we know. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, Evie Woods, who wrote the book, is so clever to kind of weave that all together. The thing I didn't like about the book was the love story between Martha and Henry. I didn't like that. I thought it was unnecessary. I think they could have
Yeah.
made friends, kind of trying to find the manuscript, but I didn't think it needed the love story. What does anybody else think?
I kind of agree with you that I thought that wasn't necessary, and it was a bit strange, really, like because at first, yeah, was it maybe actually? Edith says, I thought that part was a love story, as there was and she's obviously talking about Joseph, but I wonder if that Henry was that person for Martha, a person that they could trust after she couldn't trust her husband.
Yeah.
And, I wonder if that was kind of like the circular thing, like Opaline had met somebody who she could trust, and Martha had met, and Henry had met someone they could trust as well.
Yeah. I think in real life, the time lapse between Martha escaping her husband and then falling for Henry was quite short, and I don't think that wouldn't happen in real life. Somebody who'd survived domestic abuse probably wouldn't fall for somebody that quickly.
Yeah.
Whereas I guess with Opaline, she'd been in the asylum for 18 years.
Yeah, because so if you think that she must have been in her 40s or older by then.
Yes.
Because how old was she when she escaped to Paris? She wasn't very old.
Was
and then 21 maybe, or 20.
Yeah. Because then, of course, it turns out that our brother was actually our father. I mean, you got a bit of soap opera in there as well, really. Yeah, I could hear the EastEnders theme tune.
Not my father.
Libel says, the way you talk about the content of the book, it sounds you could make lots of books from the one. Have you not finished the book, Libel?
Oh yeah, perhaps all this is her being in the asylum all the time.
Yeah.
That's an interesting idea.
I definitely think it could have been a bigger book. I think they could have told you more of Opaline's story, and I definitely think they could have brought out more of Martha and Henry's story. I kind of think Henry was a bit surplus to requirements, really.
Well, was Henry there to let Martha believe in herself, that she could go to university? Because I feel like Martha she wanted to do more with her life, because I think she'd gone into the marriage, the domestic abuse situation, and then she kind of thought that she wanted to go to university, but she didn't have that self-confidence because probably everybody was telling her that she couldn't. And that was interesting with her mother. Her mother was a selective mute.
Yeah. And
because
then
how she grew up.
Yeah.
And then she talked at the end.
I don't think some of the plot points were kind of fleshed out enough. Libel says, until a few minutes ago, she'd never heard of the book. I hope you're not too confused then. You can go and read it now.
I should read it.
But I did enjoy the book, and I would probably read more books by Evie Wood. I think, having looked briefly at the other books she's written, they're all to do with books.
Are they? Oh, yeah. I'll definitely read some more.
Yeah, I would as well. So was there anything you didn't like in it, Deb?
Yeah, I think, as you said, I didn't like that Opaline was put into the asylum, and I was glad that she escaped, and I thought it was quite good how she escaped.
Yeah.
I thought the plot of that was a bit thin, because also I was thinking about that. I was thinking, why did the doctor keep her there? Because the brother didn't find out that she'd escaped. Because the whole idea of how she escaped was she told the doctor that if he let her escape, then he could keep quiet about it, and then the brother would keep on paying him, and the doctor agreed to that and let her go. I mean, she was holding a knife to herself, and she said, well, if I kill myself, then you won't get any money from me because I'll be dead. However, if you let me go, you can just pretend I'm still here. But what difference would it have made? He could have let her do that anyway and just pretend that she was alive.
Yeah.
You know, so that was a bit strange. I didn't dislike that, but it was a bit, that was a bit strange. And
Linda said, I think the author had lots of ideas and lumped them all together. I did feel like that a little bit. I felt there was a lot of like the asylum thing. I mean, she was in there for 18 years. Would you have been the same person when you came out? I think you would have gone mad being in there for 18 years. Diane says she struggled with how many things seemed to be thrown into the book. There was a lot, which is why I think it could have been a much longer book. And Edith says, it was not a book I had thought about before, but thank you for the recommendation. I did enjoy it. I think that's one of the reasons why I like a book club, because you do read books that you probably would never think of.
Yeah,
yeah. There was a few quotes in it that I really liked. I liked choosing not to do something is still a choice. I like that. I wrote that down. And the memories of buildings, the walls are infused with them. They never forget what we as mere mortals misplace. I really like that as well. I do like a quote.
Well, I was too busy writing down all the names of the books that to write down quotes, because I've written 2.5 pages. Everybody, I've written 2.5 pages of the books that she spoke about in there.
It did really make me want to actually go and read some of the Bronte novels, which I am ashamed to say I've never read any of them. And the thing about the lost manuscript, this second book that Emily Bronte is supposed to have written, is actually true. They do think she'd written it, but they've never been able to find it. So I like the fact that she wove some actual fact in there, because I think like you say, there was 2 authors she met in Paris, James Joyce and Ernest Hemingway, obviously both real people. But the woman who ran the bookshop, I can't remember her name now.
Sophie, was it Sophie?
Sophie. I think she's a real person as well. So I liked the way she kind of threaded that in. But I would like to actually go to this bookshop, this Lost Bookshop. I think that would be fun. If I see
you can still go there, because obviously Shakespeare and Company is still an English bookshop in Paris. You can go to, and you can go to Haworth. I've said the parsonage where the Bronte sisters lived is a museum now, and I went there last year. I wasn't very well, which is a whole different story, but you can go there. It's really interesting. In fact, it's really moving to go there and see how they lived.
Where is it?
It's in Haworth. It's in Yorkshire.
Right.
Yeah, so it's not actually too far from where you live, Karen. As you know, because it's in the north, and well, I know the whole north is not all in the same place. No, it is not that far from where you live.
Yeah.
It's lovely. And Haworth, the village, is really cute. It's a lovely place to go. The things that she mentions in the book where Opaline went, because she mentions, I think, the publican, where she gets information of the Browns who potentially have the manuscript, where she kind of finds it in the little sewing kit. There is a pub on the corner, which I think is probably the pub that she had in mind when she spoke about that pub.
Yeah.
It's definitely somewhere where I think it's worth going.
Yeah. Libel says, yes, there is something to that. A house absorbs the presence of all who lived in it. That's why I always burn some frankincense when I move into a new one, just in case you never know. I haven't heard that before, actually, about burning the frankincense.
No, I've heard of burning sage, like you can
Yeah,
smudge
yeah,
around a house with sage or
yeah,
any kind of herbs, actually.
yeah. So do we think on the whole that this book was a good one? It was a winner?
I definitely think so. I liked it, and I would definitely read more of Evie Woods' books.
Yeah, I did enjoy it as well.
What's everybody thinking in terms of the next month's book? Are we doing a book for December?
What do we think? I'm happy to do a book in December. I just don't know if it would be worth doing this review the last week in December, because it's going to be in between Christmas and New Year. Maybe people will be around. Are you around?
I'm around. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm happy to do that if everybody else wants to.
We'll choose a book for December then. Any ideas? Edith says yes from her. Libel says, in Germany, some people let a cat into a new house. When the cat isn't happy, the house isn't either.
Oh,
Interesting.
that is interesting. I've never heard of that. Diane says not for me, I'm afraid.
Diane, you can't make December, or you didn't like the book? I mean, that's fine if you can't make the live stream. It's always going to be there to catch up on afterwards. So any ideas for books we might want to read in December?
Not James Joyce, not Ulysses. That's not one I'm up for reading.
No.
Although, do you know, I read a book a while ago. It is quite a few years old. I don't know if anybody's read it. I think it's called The Paris Wives, which is actually about Ernest Hemingway. Speaking of Ernest Hemingway, it's about Ernest Hemingway's wife who lived in Paris with him. He's had a few wives, but it was the one that lived in Paris with him at the time, I guess, that this book was going on. That might be an option if anybody feels like. Yeah, I think it was, the wife was Paula Hadley, I think.
What was the book called?
The Paris Wife.
The Paris Wife. Okay. I'll put the choices for December's book up in the YouTube community page and on the Facebook group. If anybody hasn't joined the Facebook group, I will leave a link to that in the description underneath this video afterwards. It's not there at the moment, but I will leave it afterwards. And I will also put the choices in there. If anybody's got any books they'd like to put forward, I think I can put 4 on the list. We can down there.
I was reading a book called Ghosted.
Oh, and now, is that the one, Linda? Is that the one they were talking about on Between the Sheets this week? Because that actually sounded quite good. Does anybody watch Between the Sheets? Between the Sheets, between the covers, between the sheets, between the covers. It's like it's
that's a whole different kind of experience, Between the Sheets.
Between the Covers on BBC Two. It's like an online televised book club. That is quite good. Ibel says, I did make a recommendation, The Wall. The Wall.
Sounds interesting.
Spends a holiday with friends in a cabin. The couple goes for a walk. The woman wakes up, goes to find her friends, and then walks into an invisible wall. Ooh, that sounds interesting, Ibel. We can put that on. Claire says, oh, I have read that book for my real life book club, The Paris Wife, but was a while ago.
Fish book, I think.
Yeah. I'm sure I can. I'm reading what's the book called? The Midnight House at the moment. I think I put it on the list a couple of months ago, but obviously it wasn't chosen, so I've started to read that.
I'm currently reading a book called The Girls by an author called Bella Osborne. It's about the girls. I just read one because I just read one by Bella Osborne, which was kind of a romance with a bit of like mystery shoved in. And now I'm reading one called The Girls by Bella Osborne. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for the book club. I think it's just light-hearted, pass the time reading.
Yeah. I'm on my list to read is The Appeal by Janice Hallett. Has anybody read that? No. It says, 1 murder, 15 suspects. Can you uncover the truth? And the story's kind of told in interview format.
Oh, okay.
That's on my to be read list. So we could put that on the list. But if anybody is watching this after this live who has gotten any suggestions, please just leave them in the comments below. Has anybody been reading anything lately that's of interest that we all might want to read?
Good.
My granddaughter reads Warrior Cats by Erin Hunter. Warrior Cats. What's that about, like? Warrior Cats. I read one and it's a fantastic series. I've not heard of that.
Never heard of it. I'll Google it.
The Appeal sounds appealing. Haha, Carol.
What is it about? What's the premise of The Appeal? You said that it's in interview format. Is it about?
It's a murder, and there's lots of suspects, and it's written in kind of, I guess, the interviewing suspects and witnesses, and it's snippets from the interviews. That's how it's written. Because I think the one we read, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, was a little bit like that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's all like that. Warrior Cats is about tribes of cats, and they call human unfurry ones or something like that. Not sure how the format of The Appeal would transfer to audiobook.
Is it a bit like Watership Down or I don't know.
I'll have a look at it. And Claire says The Women by Kristen Hanna. Now, isn't Kristen Hanna the lady who wrote The Nightingale? And is The Women is heartbreaking as The Nightingale was?
Oh,
because if so, I don't think I want to read that at the moment. Is it
anybody got anything light-hearted, Christmassy maybe?
Do you know what The Women is? Do you know if it's a heartbreaking novel, Claire? I have heard of it.
Yeah, it is by the same. Yeah, she's the same author who wrote Nightingale.
Yeah.
So The Women is the story of one woman gone to war, but it shines a light on all women who put themselves in harm's way.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it sounds interesting.
Yeah, Libel says the summary for this Warrior Cats. 4 clans of wild cats have shared the forest according to laws laid down by their ancestors, but the Thunder Clan cats are in grave danger. I'm not sure if Warrior Cats is going to be something that's going to appeal to everybody in the book club. And I know we joined the book club to read things that are out of our comfort zone, but I think that might be a little bit out of everyone's comfort zone. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it sounds. Is it a bit
fantasy?
Yeah, a bit too funny. Is it like a bit? It sounds a bit like a fan fiction of what's that Andrew Lloyd Webber thing?
Cats.
That's it, cats.
Yeah.
Is it a fanfic of cats? Because it does sound a bit like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or young adults. I don't mind reading young adult fiction.
Yeah, I'll have a look at it. I'll have a look at it and see what it is and maybe put it on the list. Claire says The Women, she hasn't read it yet. It's about a nurse in the Vietnam War.
Okay, so I've had a message here by people saying it's a long, nerdy series full of cat trauma. It's Game of Thrones with felines. Game of Thrones with felines.
I see, that is up my street. But
that sounds something you would like.
I don't actually think I could have read the Game of Thrones books. I saw the series and I absolutely loved it. I don't think I could have read the books.
Well, I read the books, but
did
it took me off watching the series.
Right. Yeah. That sometimes happens, doesn't it? Okay, so the consensus is we enjoyed The Lost Bookshop and we'll read some more. Libel says Story Messenger by Neil deGrasse Tyson. Cosmic Perspectives on Civilization. Another cat book I read was The Cat Who Caught a... Oh, I love that, Edith. The Cat Who Caught a Killer by L.Y. Shearer. I love that book. And there is a sequel to it. I really enjoyed that book. Warrior Cat sounds quite interesting. Later read.
Wow, yeah.
I will have a look at it. Cosmic Perspectives on Civilization. Is that a non-fiction book?
Who Caught a Killer?
Cosmic. There is a great cat book, but so hard to get these days. Felidae. I can't even pronounce it. Akif Peronici.
I feel like a cat book sounds like it's... I think most people seem to be quite keen on a cat book.
And Edith says she has a third one, Edith. Oh, I'm excited now. I need both of them. I really did enjoy that book, The Cat Who Caught the Killer. The book is actually, it is a murder mystery thing. And the cat talks to its owner. And when I first started reading it, I thought, a cat that talks, really? But honestly, it was so good. It really was. Libel says it's non-fiction in the sense that the author is some physics professor of sorts. I have heard of him. And he gives a really funny perspective about humankind from out of space. Interesting. Later read for December would be welcome. I totally agree there, Claire. So I think I'm going to finish the video here because it's 7:45. And I need a cup of coffee. I've got a glass of water, but I need coffee. So I hope everybody enjoyed that chat. I know I did. Thanks so much to Deb for joining me again. I hope you'll join me again in December. You can be a regular. I'm quite happy with that.
Thank you.
And anybody else who'd like to join live on camera, let me know and I'll send you the link. As long as you've got a webcam and microphone, that would be great. Claire says it's 3:45 here, wherever she is. Where are you, Claire? I'm guessing Canada, maybe? I'm not very good on geography and timelines, so...
It's 3:45 in the morning or 3:45 in the afternoon?
I don't know. But thank you to everybody who's joined in the chat. I really appreciate you coming along. And like I said, I'll leave the link to the Facebook group in the description box below. Libel says, this was fun, Georgie Grandma. I'm reading the comments out because once this goes onto Facebook, the comments aren't there, they're gone. You don't see them. So if I read them out, then at least people know there was people in the chat talking. I'm sure I once stood next to you in the charity shop and they played some old 70s song and we started humming it and burst into laughter. Sounds like me. Could be. I don't know. She is in Canada, Nova Scotia. Afternoon, Claire. In Jackson Street in Gateshead, it was probably me then. Nice to meet you. You should have said hello. Anyway, I'm going to finish the video there. So once again, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you in December. I'll put all the details in YouTube. So see you later. Bye.
Bye, everyone.